Okay. Call this meeting to order. Commissioner Budge, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would be happy to. Please stand and join me in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to
and
the republic
for
which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Budge.
Yeah, here.
Desmond.
Here.
Frost.
Here.
Commissioner Moore.
Here.
And Lololi.
Here.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have a quorum.
And I'm here.
Oh, Commissioner Little, thank you very much.
Here.
I forget to circle around to that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. This meeting of the Local Agency Formation Commission is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse. This meeting is closed captioned and live streamed at metro14live.stackcounty.net. Today's meeting will be repeated Friday, November 5th at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. This meeting can also be viewed at youtube.com Metro Cable 14.
Thank you. We also have another public service announcement. This meeting is live streamed and temporarily closed to in-person public participation. The clerk's office is in process of hosting hybrid public meetings that will provide board members and members of the public with the option to participate in the meeting either in person or remotely. Thank you for your patience and support. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, dial area code 916-875-2501. Again, to make a public comment at today's meeting, you may dial area code 916-875-2501 to provide your contact information. When the chair opens a public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be contacted by phone and transferred into the meeting to make their public comment. Written comments are always accepted. Send your email comment to boardclerk@stackcounty.net, and your comment will be routed to the commission and filed in the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, sorry, this is Director Jones or Commissioner Jones. I'd like to point out that on the printed agenda that I have, that phone number for the public is 2500. So I would just like to do a clarification so that members can call in, members of the public can call in without an issue.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Do we have any, the clerk, do we have anyone who would like to address the commission on any matter not on the agenda? Now would be the time.
We did not receive any requests to speak off agenda.
Great, thank you. Consent calendar.
Consent calendar is items 1 through 5.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Jones. I move consent.
A second,
Okay.
Desmond.
Jones, Desmond. Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Jones and seconded by Commissioner Desmond. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Little.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Budge.
Yes.
Desmond.
Aye.
Frost.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
And Lowly.
Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you. All in favor. Next
Okay.
item is public hearing item to consider and approve the environmental review and the City of Galt, East Galt infill reorganization, Simmerhorn Ranch project.
Can we get a description and from Mr. Enriquez, please?
Gladly, Mr. Chair. I'm going to share my screen to present the presentation that I've created for this item. Basically, the item before you is composed of a large, 338-acre annexation to the city of Galt, which fills in a notch that's found within the city limits. Generally speaking, it is south of East Amador and Vauxhall Avenues, west of Marengo Road, north of Besso, and generally to the east of Highway 99. It is designated as a hatch mark, as you can see on your screen, at least as I hope you're seeing on your screen. The Silverhorn, the East Galt infill annexation is actually composed of two components. There's 119 acres Silverhorn Ranch project site, which will be developed into 429 homes with a mix of lot sizes and densities, as well as an elementary school. The Silverhorn Ranch project is proposed for development should the commission approve the project. The second component is what's labeled on the staff report as the non-participating properties. And those are the areas that are hatched and uncolored in your map, as you can see on screen. Basically, these properties, the land use is not expected to change. There are no projects associated with any of these within any of these parcels, and they will remain as is until the city gets a project later on for development. Staff report talks about an island and what the island provisions are for a city. And generally speaking, there's a very strict criteria relating to the formation of islands, which are areas that are either completely surrounded by a city or substantially surrounded by a city. It is possible to split this project in two. However, staff recommends against doing that because either thing that you do, you end up creating inadvertently an island as a result. If you were to annex just the Silverhorn Ranch project, as you can see that there's a non-participating property to the southwest of the site, and that would be entirely surrounded by the city, and so that creates an island. In addition, the area to the north is technically not an island, but as you can see, it would be surrounded by the city on 3 out of the 4 sides. If you just annex the non-participating properties, but leave the Silverhorn Ranch out of it, then in that case, development on the site would not occur. But as you can see, you could also create an area that is substantially surrounded, at least on 2 out of the 4 sides. The project was approved by a resolution of application by the city of Galt in September of 2020, and the annexation was filed with LAFCO in January of this year. The city council approved an agreement to exchange property taxes on the entire East Galt infill area on June of 2021, and the county did the same on July 13th, 2021. The requested actions include the annexation of the entire East Galt annexation infill area, which again is 338 acres, the detachment of the same territory from the Slough House Resource Conservation District, and the detachment of said territory from the Galt Irrigation District. Here is this City of Galt's pre-zoning for the entire area. As you can see, the non-participating properties have a zoning that is more or less consistent with what the County of Sacramento zoning is for the area. You have, generally speaking, to the west of the annexation area, your highway commercial or light industrial zoning or a mixed use. And then to the east side, it's mostly residential. You have residential 1 acre, which for the majority of the non-participating properties on the north side of the Silverhorn Ranch project. And then you have a little bit more intense use on the Simmerhorn Ranch project itself. As you can see from the zoning of R1C, which is maximum density single family use, or R3PD, which is medium density planned development use. These are the services that are expected to switch providers if you approve the annexation. As you can see, a lot of them relate to municipal services that are currently either being provided by the County of Sacramento or a special district. The City of Galt will then at that point take over some of the projects, some of the services in the area. These are the providers that are not expected to change. Electric service being provided by SMUD, and fire protection district provided by the Cosumnes Community Services District. The garbage and solid waste is actually a private entity that is publicly contracted to provide those services. And then the public transportation is the South County Public Transit. Everything else is a private provider, with the exception of, again, the service that I've listed before, and animal control. So here is where I take a moment and apologize deeply for several errors that are in the staff report. I'm going to cover the major ones right now. First of all, and I don't know how this happened, but all I can do is apologize for it. The information that's on the staff report relating to water and wastewater, for whatever reason, references the Summerfield project, which you considered last month, or in September, I should say. These are the paragraphs that should have been in the staff report relating to how service is going to be provided. Most of them speak really to the Simmerhorn project, since that's the only one that is slated for development. All of the non-participating properties for water and wastewater, whatever is currently being provided, which is probably a private system of either a well or a septic system, will remain the same until those residents are ready to get services from the city. But the language that's below you, that's on the presentation right now, which is also forwarded to you via email, it basically outlines how the city will extend water service, which is from an existing 12-inch line that is located on the Simmerhorn Road and Besso Road. And then for wastewater, there's going to be an interim solution of a lift station on site that will then pump the discharge into the city sewer network. Eventually, there's going to be a line that will a gravity sewer line that will be constructed along Crystal Way, which at that point the Simmerhorn Ranch project will connect to that. And once that occurs, then everything will be sent into the city sewer system by gravity feed. The following two slides relate to the emergency services that should have been an attachment to your staff report. On this one, it talks about the flood zones. As you can see from the map, the proposal area for the East Galt infill is not within a flood zone for either a 1% or 2% chance for the city of Galt. This relates to fire danger and the fire threat zone. As you can see, the non-participating properties, for the most part, fall under the moderate threat. And for the Simmerhorn Ranch project, half of it is in the moderate threat, and the other half is under the little or no threat category. So as the City of Galt was the lead agency for the project, they prepared and approved an initial study and mitigated negative declaration in September of 2020. The mitigation monitoring and reporting plan was also adopted as part of the environmental review, and those contain mitigating factors that reduced any environmental effects to a less than significant impact. Your staff report contains an analysis of all of the factors under Government Code 56668 that you should be considering as part of the annexation proposal, and it's attached as Attachment A. The City of Galt indicates that it has the capacity and the capability to extend services to the project site and the proposed development without lowering the service currently being delivered to existing residents. And then the city also indicates that it will collect sufficient funds to offset the increase in demand for services. Your recommendations are to recognize that the City of Galt as lead agency for the project has prepared a mitigated negative declaration and CEQA determinations, which have been found to be adequate for the purposes of this reorganization as part of your LAFCO actions, and to direct staff to file a notice of determination in compliance with CEQA and local ordinances. You should also adopt LAFCO Resolution 2021-17-1103, which adding any staff included some conditions of approval. You may also add in to any of those that are in the draft that's part of your staff report, and then approve the East Galt infill annexation area reorganization to the City of Galt. You should designate me as your executive officer to act as the conducting authority for this reorganization, and direct the EO to open the protest period and notify the appropriate parties pursuant to Government Code 57,000 and local policies. You should also direct me to complete the necessary filings and transmittals as required by law. And you should also determine that the effective date of the approval of this agreement is to be 5 working days after the recommendation of the certificate of completion, once the imposed conditions are met. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have relating to this presentation.
Excuse me, Executive Officer Enriquez, this is Commissioner Jones. I do have a question, and I'm sorry to, if it can be answered at a later time, that's all right as well. On page 20 of that particular report under determinations, it says that the, let's see, item number 6 under determination says, the reorganization will result in a decrease in water supply available for the build-out of regional housing needs. If not now, then perhaps later, but could you just briefly say a sentence or two about how that decrease in water supply, what's going on there?
Well, basically, as you add more homes, obviously that the service levels increase. And so in order to meet that demand, you're using water that's part of your current supply, and so it doesn't decrease it to a dangerous level. It just means that, you know, you're adding X number of homes that requires X number of EDUs, equivalent dwelling units worth of water, and so of course the amount of water that you have in your inventory decreases by X amount.
No, thank you. It was meant in a general term, not a specific thing about digging a new well or 3 new wells or anything like that. Okay,
no.
Thank you. You clarified that for me.
Okay, yeah. As the staff report indicates, basically the city does use the Casuna sub-basin as its water supply, and the city has analyzed it to what it would mean if they were to do a full build out of their general plan, which would include this project. And they found that they have sufficient water supply. You know, I neglected to mention that I also that we have Craig Hoffman as the director for the City of Galt Community Services Department, available to answer any questions, as well as representatives from the developer on the Simmerhorn Ranch. So if I can't answer any questions, those will be the individuals who would be able to.
Have any other questions?
I'm going to reserve mine until after public comment and after hearing from the folks involved with the project.
Well, does the developer want to speak to this at all? Or?
Hello, Chair, members of the Commission. This is Craig Hoffman. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Galt. This Notch annexation is an area, it's consistent with our general plan. It helps the city loop a number of infrastructure items, including circulation. Definitely, it'll help tie in the east side of Galt with the west side of Galt, helps us loop water, helps us loop sewer. This is a project a long time coming, and it's a logical extension for us from a growth standpoint. If there's any questions that I might be able to answer, I'm here to answer any questions I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Chair, there was the one public comment regarding the general plan and community plan and urban development. There were questions regarding that. So I don't know, Craig, if you can speak to that.
Sure. I reached out to Candy today. I think there was some confusion with the different mail outs. I think you had the mail out that included all the properties within the annexation boundary. And then there was another mailing out that identified kind of a 500-foot boundary of adjacent properties. And I think she thought that her property was inside the annexation. And after I talked to her today, it was fine. Her property's outside the city limits. It's not an area that the city's looking to grow in at this point in time. And that resolved that this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Frost, to the information that Mr. Hoffman indicated. By law, we have to not just notify people who are within an annexation area, but also we need to notify people that are within 500 feet of the exterior boundaries of the annexation area. So we provided two different types of notices. One for those who are within the annexation and would be impacted by this action, and those that are within that 500-foot radius buffer, basically. And we did send her the correct notice, which is the one for the 500-foot. But when you get a notice from an agency that with a funny name, you're automatically suspicious about what it means. And so I think it just, like Craig indicated, it was a misunderstanding. I also reached out to Ms. DeSanne, who submitted those comments, and let her know that she would not be impacted by the action.
Great.
Thank you.
Were there any other public comments or anyone wishing to speak to it?
No, sir. There are no public comments for this item, verbal.
Do we have a motion? Somebody like to make a motion?
Sure, Mr. Chair. I move that we follow staff's recommendation on all the considerations and moving forward and giving the executive officer, delegating to him the power to start to execute this.
Okay.
Frost,
A second.
second.
Frost, okay. So we have a motion by Jones, Commissioner Jones, and a second by Commissioner Frost. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Little,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Budge. Commissioner Budge, are you still here?
I think she might have dropped.
Okay. Commissioner Desmond,
Aye.
Frost,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
and Laloli.
Aye.
Thank you. All in favor. Motion passed.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to thank the commission for their consideration today. And I'd also like to thank your executive director for all of his work and effort on getting this to the board. So thank you all.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Next item is item number 7, report back from staff on conducting authority protest proceedings for the dissolution of Reclamation District 755, Randall Island, and annexation of the dissolved Reclamation District number 755 territory into Reclamation District 551, the Pearson District.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this is just a report back on a project that you approved back in May. Basically, it was the dissolution of Reclamation District number 755 and annexing of its service territory into Reclamation District 551. It was a project that was supported by the boards of directors for both districts, and you approved the project back in May. You also delegated the conducting authority hearings to your executive officer to conduct. So noticing was sent out to all of the affected landowners and registered voters within Reclamation District 755 about the action, and the reclamation, the conducting authority hearing was actually conducted last Wednesday, actually, October 27th, and we held a hearing. We held it open for I believe almost 20 minutes. We did not receive any written protest. We did not receive any verbal protest during that entire time. Because there was no protest, the commission decision stands. And so therefore we will be starting to file all the appropriate filings to make the dissolution and subsequent annexation final for your project. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Seeing no questions, I think we can thank you for the report and move on to item 8.
Item number 8 is receive information on AB 361 and discuss its implications on future meetings and consider approval of resolution 2021-18-1103.
Mr. Chair and members, I'm going to tag team this with our council. What I'm going to do is I'll do a brief introduction. Council will then brief you on the facets of AB 361, and then I will close it out by having a discussion on basically the practical aspects of implementing it. So, as you know, you've been operating under a remote meeting since the COVID emergency began in March 2020. Up until fairly recently, September 30th, actually, it was under the governor's executive orders. He basically relaxed some of the Brown Act rules that required you to both meet in person and publicly post where the public may participate with your commission. And in addition, if there were going to be any remote sites, you had to post the agenda on those sites as well. Anybody calling in remotely would still have to be within the jurisdiction of Sacramento County, so those pieces were relaxed, and you've been meeting remotely since. AB 361 basically takes over from there, and there was an emergency measure that was approved by the legislature over the summer. And it became effective October 1st, 2021. So with that, I'm going to share my screen, and your council will present on what 361 means and its repercussions.
Thank you, Deanne Gillick, General Counsel. I think Jose, your Executive Officer, Henriquez, just summarized the provisions of AB 361, and I think that many of you are familiar with those processes and the procedures, but just quickly I'll go through. If we could go through, why don't we go a couple more? There we go. So Executive Officer just summarized the provisions of the Brown Act that were relaxed in the executive order due to the COVID-19 emergency. Some of those are making the meeting open to the public, having a physical meeting location, identifying the location that all board members are physically at during the meeting, and allowing the public to be present at those locations. Next slide. So we have a new law, and that's AB 361, which amends Government Code 54953 in the Brown Act and allows us to continue to meet with these remote, relaxed meeting requirements if one of three things occur. A is there's a state of emergency proclaimed, and there's state or local officials that have imposed the promoting social distancing. B and C touch onto some local findings and allowing that to continue and for the remote meetings to continue during that state of emergency. We can go to the next slide. Additional, and so as we know, the state of emergency is in effect. And in addition, there are state regulations that recommend social distancing in the Cal OSHA regulations, which are before us and identified on the screen. Next slide. In addition, we have a Sacramento County order that recommends social distancing and specific to teleconference recommendations that was effective in response to AB 361. That's okay, go ahead. Some of the additional items that were amended in AB 361, if those circumstances apply, are some additional openness and transparency for public comments. We must allow for public comments to occur live time during the meeting. We cannot close public comment period until the item actually closes during our deliberation. And in the event that the remote broadcast is disrupted, the commission is prohibited from taking any action until that disruption is fixed. Next slide. One of the requirements of AB 361 and one of the purposes of today's discussion is the language of the statute that requires the boards or the commissions to make an ongoing 30-day finding that circumstances continue to warrant the relaxed remote meeting requirements. This is an easy finding for city councils and board of supervisors who meet weekly or biweekly. It's a little bit more difficult for commissions such as the LAFCO commission that meets monthly or even less often than monthly. Our recommendation is that the commission makes these reoccurring findings at each meeting and directs staff to prepare the next meeting as a remote meeting and to monitor the situation. Recognizing that the statute and the language of the statute is ambiguous and there's some inconsistencies in it, and it's not clear whether or not the legislature intended these commissions to hold special meetings within 30 days just to make the finding that the situation continues, the state of emergency continues, and the remote occur. It's our recommendation that it's reasonable that that's done at each meeting, and there's not a need for a special meeting every 30 days. So we'd like to have the commission discuss and provide some direction to staff on your recommendations and intent. Adopt the resolution if it is your desire to continue the remote meetings, and be aware that we will be making reoccurring findings. So with that, I thank the executive director for helping, and I'm available when it's time for discussions if there's any questions regarding the provisions of AB 360. And thank you.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to bring up a few things just as part of the discussion. Number one, obviously, AB 361 is a resource that you can avail yourself of if you'd like. You can also basically indicate that it would be your preference to meet in person. And if that's the case, then you can do it either in person as a whole or as a hybrid model in which some members are in the chambers and other members are calling in remotely. Right now, we do have a Sacramento Public Health Advisory that it recommends that the boards meet remotely in the near future. It's still in effect. It's attached to your report as attachment B. The only thing that I like to add from a staff's perspective is that that you go in one way or the other. Either you meet all in person or you still continue to meet remotely. Simply because the hybrid model in which some members are in the chambers and other members are calling in remotely actually create twice the work for staff because there's a lot of technology that needs to be juggled. As you can see, it's only two of us here at the office, at the moment. And in addition, as indicated in your staff report, the clerk of the boards has indicated that they would not be able to provide the same level of support that they're currently providing and assisting us with in these meetings. So the recommendation is you do go in one way or the other. In addition, I would also recommend that to aid, if you decide to continue meeting remotely, to aid in making the findings, that that the commission actually basically indicate that you'll be meeting, remotely for so many months, and then you'll revisit the issue again at some point. So if you were to say we're going to continue meeting remotely, you basically commit to, let's say, until March. So all LAFCO meetings will be remotely through March. That way, staff can prepare the appropriate notices without having to guess whether the commission is going to switch from one month to the next. Obviously, if something changes, like let's say the skies open up and a choir of angels sing, and COVID is no longer an issue, and the public recommendation from the health order is lifted, then at that point we would notify the commissioners as necessary. But we would like to get direction from you in terms of what your preference would be. And like I said, my recommendation is that you make that preference known, and set for X number of months so we can plan accordingly. And then we would revisit the issue. Obviously, we would be making the required findings as required by AB 361 from a month to month base, or from a mission to mission, meeting to meeting basis. But we would know that for X number of months, the commission will be meeting in one format versus another.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
Thanks. Jose, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I mean, I certainly have mixed feelings about this. I mean, I think it will be good when we all get back together in person. I think that's good for the process. I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, I understand trying to do a hybrid. I've seen it firsthand, how difficult that is on staff. So I would agree with you. I don't think that is a viable or a good option. Maybe this is just not. Commissioner Loloy and I are probably in the same boat here. I don't even know where LAFCO meets in regular meetings. Was it in the board chambers?
That was going to be my question.
Yes, that's where it is.
Board of Supervisors chambers. Yeah.
Okay, geez. And I'm asking that same question with a lot of the different boards and commissions since I started this thing. It's funny. The only board and commission that I serve on that actually meets in person is the Board of Supervisors. But I think it's probably a little easier to do, and I'll sit there on the dais with only 5 of us. This is a smaller commission, but it would still be, more crowded on there. And I mean, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Could we make the decision today, Deanne, to not revisit this until March, or would we have to?
Yeah. So you have to make the reoccurring findings. The statute's every 30 days. Our recommendation is when you meet. So you will be needing to do that. That can be on the consent calendar if things haven't changed. But I think what the executive director is requesting is a discussion and kind of direction or intent. That it's your intent to continue to meet unless circumstances. And you will be required to do those reoccurring, ongoing findings at each meeting.
Okay, thank you. And you did say that. So
Yeah.
thank you. Those are my comments. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I have a couple comments.
Yes.
Sorry, do we have a raise your hand function, or is it just going to be visual?
No, I don't think so.
Couldn't find it.
Commissioner Frost, if you want to go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Here we go. Here's my hand. Actually, 3 things. One, Jose, I think you've made this has been one instance of a reasonable, I'd say, potential to get additional staff, because this kind of stuff is not going to get any simpler. That would, so anyway, I think that's something that we should consider in the future here. And this is one example why, because of the burden on smaller staff. We need to spread out the work, so to speak. The second one is, I agree with Rich about the challenges for meeting hybrid, et cetera, et cetera. And with that being said, and because we have a small staff, I would say the third thing would be let's continue remotely and make it till March. And the main reason for that is big picture going into winter, et cetera, et cetera. And we need to see, I'd like to see some better numbers for general public health, better numbers, and before we meet again. My opinion, and I think it has some validity here given our circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Frost.
My comments are somewhat like Commissioner Jones. I think the fact that we're going into the winter, which is the normal flu season, being a retired nurse, I know that the numbers are going to go up in the wintertime, and it's when the sun comes out that everything gets better. And so I think for practicality, as much as I love that, the idea of transparent process and have advocated for, that we don't generally have a lot of public comment on LAVCO. So I think, it's more practical to think, to just let you know that our intention is to do the virtual meetings through March and revisit them as per council's advice, however is most reasonable and practical for the staff.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Lololi?
Mr. Chair, do you need a motion on this, or is it just?
Yes, we would need a motion to do this.
So we have to see if there's public comment and give them the opportunity to comment before we take formal action. And the motion that's recommended is the resolution establishing that intent to continue to meet remotely and for staff to prepare the documentation and plan for remote meetings.
Do we have any public comment?
No, sir, we do not have any verbal public comments for this item.
Okay. Well, then let's move on. And Commissioner Lololi, would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I hope I get it right. So it's a motion with the intent that we'll keep online communication till March, at which time we vote on this again, with the understanding that meanwhile, during this time, at every meeting within the consent calendar, this topic can come up so we can get updated with the new codes or guidelines from the state or county.
Okay. And with that, the commissioner's oral recommendation is consistent with the resolution that's in the packet. So just.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Lololi and a second by Commissioner Desmond. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Little.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Budge. Oh, she's, I think, gone. Commissioner Desmond.
Aye.
Frost.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
And Lololi.
Aye.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion passed.
Our next item.
Our next item is number 9, discussion on conducting authority protest hearing process.
Chair and members, the practice here in Sacramento LAFCO has been that whenever there is a conducting authority proceedings that are part of are necessary for the processing of a project, that it's delegated to the executive officer. One thing that commissioners should know is that the amount of noticing that has to occur for conducting authority hearings is also the same as a regular commission meeting, and the notices have to be mailed out to individuals. and notices have to be posted in the paper. Again, being short-staffed, it's because the same amount of noticing is required to do a conducting authority hearings that is just held at staff level is the same as a regular commission meeting. I'm requesting that the commission consider that we slightly tweak the traditional practice here and allowing for some of the conducting authority hearings to take place during commission meetings if the timing works out. So by way of example, you just approved a project with Simmerhorn Ranch, and that one does require conducting authority hearings to take place. Based on the requirements under the law, which are outlined in the staff report, a conducting authority hearing would roughly be about 2 months from now. There wouldn't be a commission meeting at that time. So in that case, it makes sense for staff to conduct the conducting authority hearings in order to allow the applicant to get through the LAFCO proceedings in a timely manner. But at the December meeting, you will be hearing a project that, should you approve it, the timing for the conducting authority hearing will actually coincide with your regular commission meeting in February. So if that is the case, then under the proposal that I'm requesting the commission consider, in that case, the conducting authority hearings would not be delegated to the executive officer, but instead would be held at the same time as the commission meeting. That way, we basically do not duplicate the amount of work that's necessary to do that conducting authority hearing. And in fact, the one that was held last week for Reclamation District 755, had it not been delegated to the executive officer, it would have made sense to actually just roll it into this commission meeting, because again, the level of work for noticing that's required under the law is the same. So that is my recommendation to you, that you consider tweaking the process so that staff would then at that point would be able to advise you whether you should delegate your conducting authority hearings at the staff level, or whether it can be part of the commission meeting, regular commission meeting, if the timing works out.
Commissioner Frost.
How do other LAFCOs do it, and does that impact transparency, public transparency?
It really, there's that discretion to delegate the conducting authority hearing is found under the law. Some LAFCOs choose to delegate those meetings to executive officer, like the practice was, the traditional practice has been here in Sacramento. In other cases, the commission retains the discretion to conduct to be the conducting authority hearing body, and so they retain that authority and don't delegate it out. So in the two other LAFCOs that I worked under, YOLO and in El Dorado, the conducting authority hearings are always held by at the commission level. They were never delegated to staff. But again, delegating it to staff is allowed under the law. So there's nothing wrong with that practice. Like I said, the same amount of noticing takes place whether it's at the commission level or whether it's delegated to staff.
But those conducting authority meetings would inform us in a certain way also in our decision making, versus us just receiving a report. We would actually be part of it. So, right? That's
correct.
The difference. We're removing the process from ourselves and the information from ourselves in our decision process. Okay, thank you.
It sounds to me like this wouldn't be something that would be at every commission meeting. We'd have a conducting authority, but at times where it works out, we would utilize that as opposed to having staff to do it, which sounds like a reasonable use of everyone's time and certainly efficiencies to go along with that. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chairperson Little. I would like to reiterate the comments you just made, as well as Commissioner Frost. I would think that perhaps if we do when it's a case by case and it convenes together to do the conducting authority hearing at our regularly scheduled meeting would actually perhaps bring in more folks, because anyone who would follow this hopefully knows that we meet the first Wednesday of the month. So I think that would be helpful at that. And I wanted to thank Jose. I want to thank you for bringing about presenting us with some efficiencies that are very helpful. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay.
Council can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that you need to have a motion on this. But perhaps there's a member of the public who would like to make a comment on this item.
Are there any comments from the public?
No, sir, there are no verbal public comments for this item.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we'll just leave it in the capable hands of our executive officer and wish him well, and hopefully we can obviate his need to have multiple meetings. So item 10.
Item 10 is review and approve request from Cal LAFCO for the appointment of executive officer as deputy executive officer for the statewide association.
Mr. Chair and members, the California Association of LAFCOs, which is the statewide umbrella statewide association in which this LAFCO belongs to, has requested that that you approve their request to appoint me as a deputy executive officer for the central region. As you know, Cal LAFCO is broken up into 4 different regions across the state, and it relies on volunteers to help them with their businesses. They have even smaller staff than your current staff is, and so they've asked if I could serve as a deputy executive officer for 2 years. That would be the term, and this is a discussion that I also saw counsel from Commissioner Jones, and so maybe she has something to add to that, but. This is up to you. If you approve their request, I would be appointed as deputy EO on at the November 12th meeting. I should add that the current deputy EO for the Central Region has graciously volunteered to be my training wheels, so that we would be splitting the duties to kind of ease me in the transition. My concern has been that because I'm so new to this county, I should be concentrating on and getting used to the county and the players before I assume a different type of role. But Cal LAFCO has been sensitive to that, and so as I indicated, the current deputy EO has volunteered to help me to just ease my transition into that role. There is a stipend that is associated with the appointment. Cal LAFCO would be paying a total of $4,000 per fiscal year. Since Christine Crawford, who is the current deputy EO, she's the executive officer for YOLO, is going to be transitioning with me. For the first fiscal year, we will actually be splitting that stipend. But the next fiscal year in 22-23, this LAFCO would be receiving the full stipend for the second year of my appointment.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chairperson Little. Yes, I support Jose's transition into Cal LAFCO on the very, again, broad 100,000-foot level. This information and sharing and networking across the state of California will help all of us as a LAFCO commission for Sacramento County. And with the transition part, I think that's a very good break-in period. And this will be very, very helpful to us as commissioners and as a county LAFCO. An additional point, just to help clarify, the stipend goes to the LAFCO. it goes to the LAFCO, not the individual person. So this level of professional development and so on, I think is super, super important. And I would appreciate folks' support for this. I'm very ready to listen to any concerns or questions that someone might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments?
Chair, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
thank you, Commissioner Jones. I agree with everything you said, and you certainly know a heck of a lot more about it than I do. If it's something Jose wants to do, I also support it as well. It sounds like a great opportunity.
Thank you. And actually, Jose, if you would just briefly tell us what the region encompasses, which counties, if you have that off the top of your head.
I do, and it's kind of my own internal joke that, you know, the northern regions are basically the counties north of Sacramento County. The coastal regions are all along the coast of California. The southern region are the 5 southern counties, and then everybody else is in the central region. So that's kind of so roughly speaking, it would include Yolo. If you make a line from Yolo, Sacramento, El Dorado, actually Placer, and then go south as far as San Bernardino, and it would be to the west of the coast, to the east of the coastal counties. That's the central region. So it's a big swath. It's you know, I don't know what a county like Yolo and Sacramento would have in common with Inyo, but you know, we would be in the same region, and it would be my duty to kind of make sure that that everybody has the understanding of what CalAFCO is doing, and you know, some of the information sharing that CalAFCO does as an organization, that we disseminate that information.
Well, I think it's great, and I think anything you can do that can improve your knowledge and sharing knowledge with others is great, and it looks good for our LAFCO to be participating at that level as well. So I think it's great. We need a motion.
Chairperson Little,
Yes.
this is Commissioner Moore sitting in for Levy. I just wanted to say that I also totally agree that anything that we can do to get involved in state level organizations is going to be beneficial to Sacramento County, regardless of whether they, and I agree, I'm not sure what Yolo and Sacramento County have in common with Inyo or King or any of the other counties, but it's bound to be beneficial to us as commissioners to find out what is going on with the other commissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the appointment?
I'd be glad to second that.
Well, I wasn't making it. I was just asking for it.
Commissioner Moore, I will make a motion.
Okay.
I second.
Commissioner Moore, and we'll give it to Commissioner Desmond for the second. Okay. All right. So we have a motion on the floor. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Little,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Desmond,
Aye.
Frost,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
and Laloli.
Aye.
Thank you. We all in favor, motion passed. Next item is
Congratulations.
pardon?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Our next item is item 11. It's a receive and file letter from Friends of Swainson Hawk regarding the memorandum of understanding between the City of Sacramento and Sacramento LAFCO relating to the preparation of a coordinated environmental review process for the Airport South Industrial Project.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, typically for receives and files, since there's no action that's been requested of you tonight, I put them on consent. But as you know, this item is of high visibility, and so I put it on the agenda as a discussion item in case you had questions relating to the letter, and also to receive any public comment that's may be forthcoming. I do indicate that the letter came from Swains-Hiscock because the letter was actually submitted electronically from the Friends of Swains-Hiscock email, but I do want to clarify that it's actually signed by various environmental groups found in the county. So it's not just from them. It's from several groups. And we have also received other separate emails and letters. I forwarded them all to you, but just to make sure that everybody is aware of which emails were received. One was a subsequent letter from the Friends of Swains-Hiscock, but again, it was on behalf of the other environmental groups. The second was from former Sacramento City Mayor Heather Fargo. And then the third one was from Robert Burness on this item. As I indicated, this is a receive and file. There is no action that's being requested, but we wanted to make this an agenda item so that if you have any questions relating to the comments that were found in the letter or subsequent comments that were provided, staff was available to answer those questions, and again, also to provide a forum for members of the public and other interested parties to comment on this item. The MOU itself was actually approved by the commission earlier this year. It was presented to you at the September meeting, and it was signed by my predecessor, Don Lockhart, on your behalf. And all it is basically the preparation of the environmental review for a potential annexation. It does not waive any discretionary action on your behalf, and it does not commit to anything other than studying this potential issue. Last thing I wanted to say, and then I'll pass it along in case council wanted to add anything to my report, is that it is submitted to you as a receive and file, simply because the letter is actually not addressed to you; it's addressed to the Sacramento City Council. So I don't believe, as a staff member, that it is proper to respond to a letter that was not addressed to you specifically. So I didn't know if council wanted to add anything to my report.
No, I have no further comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Lololi?
Yes, I just want to make sure I have a better understanding on this. So this particular item, it still has to come in front of the Sacramento City Council to get voted on. So it's my understanding that the procedure that we're going through right now is purely an environmental study. That's it.
That is correct. Just to give you a brief overview of what the process would be from here on out, is basically what the city and LAFCO are doing is preparing an environmental document that would serve both purposes. Should the city proceed with an annexation request, which is still a discretionary action, this environmental review would be for that action. But in addition, the environmental review would also cover the LAFCO process if it proceeds and the city actually requests annexation into of this project. So that's why it's both parties are LAFCO and the city are part of that agreement, is so that we make sure that the environmental review covers both processes if it gets to that point. Again, this is still a discretionary action on both the city's behalf and on LAFCO's behalf. And at this point, we're nowhere near any of that because it hasn't been studied. So we don't know what the impacts are going to be.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any comments, questions?
Commissioner Moore?
Commissioner
Moore?
Jones? Oh, Commissioner Moore?
Let Moore go.
Okay, Commissioner Moore?
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Yeah, I have two questions. My first question would be, when would this come back to LAFCO and in what form? Or is this going to come back to LAFCO?
It will come back to LAFCO because any changes to the city's boundaries would have to be approved by you. And again, it's a discretionary action on your behalf. So should the environmental review be completed, and should, based on those findings and other findings that the city has to make as part of its process, proceed with an annexation, they would apply to LAFCO, and LAFCO would process it, and then it would come before your commission. When that will be, we do not know, because this is a very preliminary. We're at a very preliminary stage. An environmental consultant has been selected after a circulation of qualifications was made. And LAFCO, it's just the latest actions that we've done is that we've reviewed their scope of work and we've provided comments on that scope of work about what it should, of what the environmental review should cover. So we're very, very early at this stage, and I can't stress that enough, that no decisions have been made. Nobody has been committed to a certain course of action, and you always retain your discretionary approval authority.
Thank you. That helps a lot. My second issue was that letter from former Mayor Heather Fargo that came in, mentioning that the part of the annexation property, at least, is outside the urban services boundary. What does that mean in terms of annexation?
Basically, the urban services boundary was a line that was adopted by the County of Sacramento as to where it would naturally grow. Some cities adhere to that line, but they're not bound by it. And there are actually a couple of examples where the county has drawn a line where they're saying we would not direct any development across this line, that other cities have decided not to adhere to. So it is a discretionary action by the County of Sacramento. The city is not bound by it. They are bound by the Habitat Conservation Plan, of which that will be part of the study that will be conducted by the environmental review, and the repercussions that would entail. But that's a city decision that will be coming much later than where we're at right now.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. I would like to show my appreciation and thank Jose for the public sunlight on this issue right away, early up front, so no one can feel disenfranchised, and this information is being shared way ahead of any serious decision making. So I wanted to acknowledge our new EO for getting out in front of issues so we can have a thorough discussion and the public can be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chair, I would like to state that at least two people have requested to speak on this item from the public, and Ms. Munoz would be able to make the appropriate technological magic to make that happen.
Okay.
Correct. There are two public commenters, and right now we have one on. I will start the clock or the timer at 2 minutes. And Ms. Lamar, so Chairperson Little, are you ready for public comment?
I am, yes.
Okay. So Ms. Lamar, if you would like to start your public comment, please start.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Little and commissioners. The environmental groups that shared their letter with you have been engaged in the Natomas Basin issues since 1994. And because this is a key area in the region for protecting threatened wildlife, and because this was the first habitat conservation plan adopted and by the locals and the Fed. And so we're concerned that we get noticed on any hearing illness. I think tonight, in addition to the letter you had from Mayor Fargo, who really was head honcho in getting CP adopted, we have two representatives tonight from our larger coalition. And what we see is that LAFCO is a regulator of orderly urban growth. And what we see in this process is not an orderly process. Very concerning to us. The city did not include the Natomas Basin Habitat Conservation Plan restrictions and requirements in the MOU that was presented to you. It did not disclose to LAFCO it would be responding to those restrictions and requirements. And moreover, the city set a hearing for that MOU. You gave a letter to the council to explain how critical this and the city staff on the agenda, without telling us anything about it, signed the MOU and sent it to at LAFCO July 30th, and we learned about the signed MOU from your website, from your September meeting. So obviously we feel dealt out. So we urge you to look more deeply at this MOU and look more deeply at what is required by the city to annex the permit area of the HCP. So far, what we've heard people do is kind of dismiss this as, oh, this is just another environmental issue. We'll take care of that as we move along. And it's really more complex. The city has contract with state and federal governments about protecting farmland and open space in Natomas. And we think that LAFCO should be fully aware of what this is going to require and not just shoved into an EIR process. This is entirely separate from an EIR process. We're asking you to consider rescinding this MOU, getting a better agreement with the city about how this is going to proceed. And we urge you to look at this. It's an important environmental issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? I think you said we had another commenter.
Yes, sir. Yes. Would you give me a moment to get the commenter on the line? Thank you.
I'm on mute.
Okay, sir, you can start your public comment. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening, commissioners. This is Rob Burness. I'm co-chair of Habitat 2020 and an ECOS board member, one of the lead groups that responded. Our letter, and I'm going to read the letter that I sent to you. Our letter to the City Council raises important concerns worthy of your commission's attention. One, neither the city, the general plan, nor the community plan provide for urban development of the proposed SOI annexation. Secondly, the Natomas Basin Habitat Conservation Plan Agreement between Sacramento City and the state and federal wildlife agencies does not include the land proposed for annexation in the development of or the take area. And three, despite these concerns, city staff the MOU between the city and LAFCO without council review and approval. This process was improper and should not be considered a valid authorization. Your commission is charged by state legislation to guide urban growth away from important agricultural and open space lands. We submit, and the letter points out, that there are economic and political ripple effects beyond the specific SOI annexation request, which will significantly limit, not include, the full implementation of the Natomas Basin HCP. Proceeding as envisioned will accelerate those efforts in contrast to your charge. We would suggest that the process envisioned by this MOU is a prime example of putting the cart before the horse. Consideration of urban growth on lands committed by agreement to be available for habitat mitigation excuse me, properly belongs within the scope of the Sacramento City General Plan update, not a precedent-setting annexation proposal. We urge your commission to initiate action to rescind your approval of the MOU. This will allow a full public discussion of the issues associated with moving forward with this annexation request. We believe that you are not obligated to proceed with processing this annexation request for the city and have the authority to refuse to accept it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your
And that
comments.
concludes the public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Lamar and Mr. Burness for your comments. Do we have any further comments from commission members? Okay. Seeing none, I think we're at the end of our agenda. Is that correct?
Just if you have any announcements, I, as an executive officer, don't. I don't know if council had any announcements on your end.
Anyone else?
Any commissioners?
No? All right. Well, if there are no further comments or announcements, we will adjourn at 6:49. And I thank you all and have a good November.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Recording has stopped.